Do you find yourself overwhelmed by the thought of making a career transition? I've been there and I understand the challenges you face. That's why I created the Career Compass, the ultimate guide for high achieving corporate women to make career transitions with ease. The Career Compass breaks down the decision making process into 5 clear steps, helping you make savvy, empowered career decisions. Head over to KarenFreeland.com/career compass right now and download this invaluable resource. It's completely free and will get you on the path to a more fulfilling career. Go to KarenFreeland.com/career compass now. Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention, where I help high achieving career women like you get unstuck, make your corporate exit strategy, and successfully transition to your next chapter. Hi, I'm your host, Karen Freeland, a certified life coach and corporate exit strategist. Whether you want to start a business, become a speaker, or something else, I'm here to give you the tools and strategies to shift your mindset, build your confidence, and take bold actions so you can rock your reinvention. Ready? Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Rock Your Reinvention. I am so excited for today's episode because we have a powerhouse guest. Her name is Tez Roro, and she is a real estate broker in New Jersey, a self-proclaimed power connector and community builder. And let me tell you, I have witnessed that firsthand. She is also a highly sought-after speaker. Tez is on a mission to provide a real estate experience where her clients make informed and confident decisions. And she does this by rooting her practice in education and delivering it wrapped in authenticity and professionalism. But here's why I wanted to have her on the show today. Because beyond real estate, she's a connector of people, of ideas, of resources, which means that if you work with her or you are in her network, you are going to reap the benefits in multiple ways. And I want other women to learn the art of networking from her. So welcome to the show, Tez.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's so nice to be warmly introduced by someone else.
Yeah, well, we've been longtime friends. We worked
Yeah.
together in the corporate arena for a long time, and we were just chatting before I pressed record about how we both were having those early conversations. Like, I'm thinking about leaving, I'm thinking about doing something else, and it's just been so fun to watch each other blossom and grow into our entrepreneur life.
Yeah, and I've always appreciated your sense of style when we were in the corporate world. And now that we're on the other side, we get to still get connected. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited that you're here. We are going to have a really big discussion on networking because I got to tell you, I wanted to have this conversation anyway, but I know you've been speaking on bigger stages lately and talking about networking. This is kind of one of your signature talks.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a networking event just last week.
Mm,
And I can't tell you how many women were like, I'm terrified to be here. This
yeah.
is my first time. I'm so scared to do network. And I'm like, why are we scared, ladies? What are we scared
Mhm.
of? So I'm hoping that you can help us demystify this a little bit and embrace such a powerful tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why I enjoy talking about this topic, Karen, is that I was not one of those people who was always great at it, right? So I'm speaking from experience. This is not a gift I've always had. I am not an extrovert. I am very much an introvert, and we can talk a lot about that
Yes.
later. And so this, especially in the corporate world, like you said, networking, we're always told network to move up and to do this. And that's really when I started, towards the middle later career in my corporate career of like, I think I got this. I think I understand the anatomy of this and, how to go about it and start seeing results. And now, obviously, in the business world, it's that much more important to move around. And so that's when I kind of started breaking it down and kind of
Yeah.
started teaching it and talking about it. So yeah, I'm excited to delve into it.
Yeah, and maybe that's a great place to start is just like the importance of networking. How has it benefited you personally, professionally, and why do others need to embrace this?
So, I'm going to talk in very basic human terms here, right? Like
Please.
we are connected to each other. There is no life. We cannot live a life by ourselves, personally, professionally. We need each other, right? It is a
Yes.
web of connections that makes things happen. So just take it on that basic level, right? Now, we're always looking for someone great to do something, whether it's a nanny or a cleaner or a plumber or a CPA, a lawyer. We're always looking for someone who's great at what they do and are ethical, right? So that is networking. When we're looking for recommendations, that is a form of networking. We're getting networked with someone. Now, the core of all of this is to be that person that people see value in. So then
Mhm.
behind that is what is our value, right? And sometimes, yes, the professional etiquette and acumen, knowing our stuff, quality is top tier. You've got to get there. Outside of that, I'm sure you and I both know a lot of people who are great at what they do, that maybe are not great with business development or networking, right? So then I think being clear on the value proposition as a person. So I think that one of like the misconceptions about networking is we go into spaces and rooms, and whether those of you who are watching are in the corporate world or nonprofit or self-employed, we go into room, and when we think of networking, we think about passing out cards, and we think about
Yeah.
getting what can I get out of this.
And like
Yes.
the pitch, like that
Right.
elevator pitch that I got to have in 30 seconds or less.
And which is fine. I think it's important to have like a concise value proposition of like what you have to offer. But before we even get to that, my principle when I teach the art of networking is be clear and solid in who you are and what you have to
Hmm.
offer, even as a person outside of your a lot of the times, Karen, like when I network, real estate is one of the last things I talk about, right? Like, someone is opting in a daycare and I'm reaching out actively to that person and saying, hey, what do you need? I see you have this, role open. I can cascade it to my network. I'm solely focused on what I can do for that person. How can I be of service to that person? Now, obviously, in order to be of service to that person or something to offer, there are some core skills you have to develop, right? So I think what I'm going to challenge people to do is move away from this idea of get, to say, what
Hmm.
is it, even outside of the obvious referral business? Yes, we all want referrals, that's a given. But what is a skill set or a value or a network that I have that I can offer? What problem can I solve this person? Let's start there.
Yeah.
Then we go to what we all know in business, the know, like, and trust factor, right? Now we've gotten to know each other. Wow, this person is genuinely interested in adding value to me, solving my problems, right? And then there's that level of trust. So even though people not have done directly business with me or you, Karen, when we approach people this way, do you think they'll have comfort level to then refer us to other places?
Right. Of
Yes, because we
course.
connected with them on a basic human level.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so true. I've seen it because most of my business is referrals. I don't get a lot of business from social posts and things like that. I do it just to keep the credibility up and
Yeah.
stay top of mind. But I mean, most of my bread and butter is coming from these referrals. And it's somebody that, like, a friend or somebody that golfed with somebody and they're like, oh, they, need a life coach, or
Yeah.
they were at a dinner party or something and they just, oh, well, you should talk to my friend Karen,
Right.
and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
They have to know you to make those
And
referrals.
I bet those referrals came not just because you say I'm a life coach, but because there's something that connected you to on a personal level. Maybe it's parenthood,
Right.
maybe you're a pet parent, or maybe it's some interest, golf you have. There's just you being authentic and real, right?
Hmm.
There's something that people connect to. And that's a beautiful thing because you don't have to try too much because that is who you are. And that's what
Right.
people come to you on.
Yeah. And it's actually easier to connect with people when you're being your authentic self. I think
Yeah.
that's just another reminder for women, too. Like, sometimes we have to take off the mask, and not just try to be what we think society wants us to be and just start to own who we actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love that. Okay. So you mentioned this word, this idea of networking being an art.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what you mean by that and what makes it an art. What if I'm not
Absolutely.
artistic?
Artistic. I think we all are. I think we just have to find our way. So
Mm.
most of us think of networking. I think we connect networking to being an extrovert, right? Like,
Mhm.
someone who comes into like a room full of bar networking situations in the left of the party and passes out cards. I don't think that's effective networking. And I'll tell you why. Like, I've never really called someone or referred someone who approached me that way. I have I'm sure we all have stacks and stacks of cards from all the networking places that we've
Yep.
had. And it's only a few of them that we actually connect with because they spent time with us in that personal level, right? To get to know each other, our goals. It wasn't just about what they can get out of us. So it is an art because there's misconceptions about what it is or who can do it. I think introverts are one of the best intentional networkers. And here's why. We're not mostly introverts are great at listening,
Mm.
like active listening, right? So we're taking data points. We're also not great at small talk. We don't like small talk. If it's not meaningful, if there's no solid conversation, we're not up for it. So when you start to add those things, we're intentional. We listen actively. We don't like small talk. So that means we're really interested in intentional, deep conversations that then puts us back to the know, like, and trust. And we're trying to figure out the person as an individual, where they are in their goals. So the art part is that it's not networking, is not passing out cards. It's not just going to social events. So I think we have to be really strategic when you think about networking. First, you're going to get invited to events, organizations. So to me, I'm a spreadsheet girl, right? Like I'm very intentional. And if I decide to join an organization or even get invited to a networking, I want to know who's usually there, like who shows up, or what's
Right.
the vibe like? Is it formal? Is it informal? I'm not a bar networking type of girl. I don't drink. That's not my scene. I prefer more informal type of things, right? So be really intentional in those ways. If you know the host of the person or the person who invited you, this requires knowing where you are personally, professionally, what you want to grow in, what type of connections you want, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then I can say, you know what, so and so. I just came from Boston, a convention. It was about a few days, time away from my family and business. It was not cheap, but guess what? I knew I did my homework of okay, who's going to be there? Why is it worth my time to spend time and
Yeah.
energy? And let me tell you, every single person I had on my list before going there, I met in person, right?
Wow.
So we have to be really intentional about why we do things, what we want to get out of that relationship, and more importantly, what we can offer. Then, kind of implement what I said, be authentic, be real, come from a place of contribution, and then give without keeping score. So I'm telling you, when you
Mm-hmm.
give because you can, because you have the skill sets, because you have the network, it almost always comes back to you.
Yeah, and I think I do hear a lot of women like, well, I'm giving them information for free. They're just picking my brain, or I'm just, yeah, helping them. But what's in it for me? And it's like, you just got to let it go. Give freely what you have been given. And, obviously at some point, if you're getting business, they need to pay you, right? You can't
Yeah.
be doing work for free.
Yeah.
But in terms of just like giving people some tips, some pointers, things like that, connecting people, helping them, I mean, that's just good karma. Do it.
Yeah. And you said something important, Karen, picking your brain. And so let's talk in terms of women specifically, right? Since
Mhm.
that's, our audience. So, I think women are particularly well positioned to do well in networking because we are relational beings, right?
Mhm.
And relationship building is what's going to help us become effective networkers. However, there is a balance of, okay, how much free time. So time is the currency so the whole idea about intentionality, it all comes back to time, right? We have
Yep.
limited time here on this earth, right? That's the one thing we cannot duplicate or make more of. We can make more money, we can buy more things, we cannot get our time back. So being intentional is super important in how we spend our time, who we spend it with. And so, yes, there's times to give information free. And you and I know that, like, after doing this so much, we start to systemize it, right? So
Mhm.
maybe it's a newsletter. Maybe for me, it's a Calendly, 15 minutes, let's talk, right? If we're chatting back and forth and, maybe a phone conversation is more, I'll give you 15 minutes of my time. But if you then want like more, an hour and a half of like true consultation, then we can talk about what my packages look like, right? But
Right.
lead from a place of contribution and see what you can do. So I do think we have to be careful about being generous with our time and resources, but also
Mhm.
knowing like, okay, this is where like I'm giving too much of my time, I then now to start charging for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point, because I know sometimes as women too, we're like, well, then if I ask for the money or if I try to charge, they're not going to do it. And it's like, yeah, but then you're not able to pay yourself. I can't, and it blows my mind how many women have been in business and they're still not paying themselves. And it's crazy. So we don't
Yeah.
want that. We want you to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you have mentioned introverts a couple of times, and I know that from a data perspective, in terms of confidence, your personality trait actually has no bearing on how confident you are. So a lot of people think, oh, well, if you're an extrovert, you must be more confident, but there's actually nothing to back that up. And there are many introverts who are actually very confident people. So I'm curious about introverts, and you mentioned a little bit about active listening, but what else makes them great, so we can kind of bust that myth that, oh, if I'm an introvert, I'm not going to be any good at this.
Yeah. So I think with introverts, like I said, we're very intentional people. We may seem timid or quiet in the beginning, but then when we were in our jam, in our environment, a lot of people are like, you can't be an introvert. Like people, especially around me, close to me, don't want to believe that I am. Trust me when I tell you I am. Like solitude is important to me. I need time to myself to refuel, and I can peopling too much, like I said, can overwhelm me at times. But then, I'm very strategic and intentional about selecting my environment and people that I'm in. So then, of course, I come across as an extrovert because I'm comfortable. I know I can add value. I know there's value that I can get. That's my scene, right?
Yeah.
So I think intentionality is important. And for introverts, I would just say, I think finding something that you naturally like or are already in a space in helps you kind of lower the guard a little bit. So what do I mean by that? Think of networking as friendship, really, just creating relationships first, because we have to first know, like, and trust each other in order to do anything further, whether you're trying to move up in your career or grow your business, right? So
Yep.
focus there, because even if there is no business or, growth at the end of it, at least you have good relationships. So what are the spaces that you occupy? So for me, parenthood is a big hat that I wear.
Mm-hmm.
I am active in boards and nonprofit and things like that. So what are the spaces that you naturally occupy? How could you be super intentional about it? Because these are folks who already rally around the same idea that you enjoy, that you like. Then, being intentional about taking that step further, right? So we thrive more in a one-on-one environment. And so maybe it's a coffee connection or something like that. And then during that coffee connection, go in with a goal. Don't just go in, coffee. I'm going to tell you the level of intentionality, Karen. So like when I do one-on-ones, like I'm looking like I have, and this is what I teach in my workshop, The Art of Networking in parentheses for Introverts, is there's this website called What's Halfway. So if someone is in my market, I put in their general area, my general area, and I come up with coffee places or lunch midway because I think each person should invest equally, right?
Yeah.
And I make it easy to say yes, because how many times have we lost out on connection because there's intention, but folks are like, here's my 3 availability. And then by the time you get around to the email, it has come and gone and you feel weird going back, right?
Yeah.
So I use Calendly as a way to anchor that intention into action, right? They can use that link any time of the day, anytime, and it's still good because it's connected to my network.
Right.
Calendar. So that's one tool I use. And then, I just make it easy to say yes. Like, here's a place that I found that's close to us. Would this work? And here's access to my calendar. Let me know what works. And then during that meeting, I literally write down things that I think I can offer that person. And usually I ask them if it's a business owner. Most of the times these days I'm interacting with business owners. And as introverts, again, we like to spend time with ourselves. This is the homework I do ahead of time. So if it's a business owner, I look at their website, I look at their social media, I look at their presence, I look at their product offerings. I look at it from a lens of a consumer and say, I love this. This one, like I kept going around your website. And if I was interested in making a purchase, it gave me pause. Like it was not clear or whatever. Like I do that work and I already come with value. This is technically like a complementary marketing consultation, right?
Wow.
And people are like, oh my gosh, like no one has ever said this before. That makes sense or whatever. And guess what they say after I offer all of this value? Oh my gosh, what can I do for you? It's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's inevitable because I led with value. I didn't come here saying, here's my card, refer me people who know,
Right. What can
who
you do for me?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my strategy and what has worked for me, and I think will work for a lot of introverts.
For sure. And I love the level of intentionality. Like when we go to an event and it's not quite the right fit for us, that's when I think the fear and the sweaty palms and like that discomfort starts to come up. So if you already know going in, this is the right environment, this is going to feel good for me, and then you do the homework and you like approach it from that perspective, it's a home run, right? It just
Yeah.
it becomes easier. There's a little upfront work,
Yeah.
but then the networking event itself, I think, becomes easier and I'm sure much more fruitful.
Yeah, and I think to your point, usually someone is inviting you. So maybe
Mhm.
we do, introverts do tend to look for someone familiar. I certainly do that, even at this level. So maybe you go with that person. Or if you're being brave and going to a person and you don't know, just some quick conversation starters is, hey, have you been to this event before? Or if it's like a membership based, a chamber of commerce or something, hey, are you a member? Or, what are other events that you've attended? So those are like small things that can open up conversation. And tell me about
Mhm.
yourself, or what are your goals? What are you working on? Kind of, people like to talk about themselves, right? So kind
Yes,
of
they
make
do.
it about themselves. So those are some easy conversational starters.
And the other thing you mentioned is having a spreadsheet and being intentional with follow up. So I want to talk about this because I was working with a client and she had a goal of doing more networking. And so we just started small. I'm like, how many networking events a month would you want to go to? How many a week? And so she started doing, actually, we worked up to 2 a week, which is quite a lot. And
Yeah.
so, but that was her goal. And so I was like, great. But then I was like, all right, well, what are you doing with these connections? And she's like, well, they're going to reach out to me. They'll contact. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We need a follow up
Yeah.
strategy. We need
Yeah.
to make sure that we're doing something. So, do you have any guidance around that or rules of thumb so that we can make sure people have a solid follow up process?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it all goes back to kind of being of service and what you can do for that person. So when I'm listening to people talk, I'm literally I'm like it's like a mental Rolodex going through. I may have mentioned this term with you, when we did this last time. It's literally a mental Rolodex of, okay, Karen is working on this and working on this, and this is her goal. I'm like, oh, I know this person, I can connect her to, and whatever. And sometimes I may even interrupt people saying, my mind is like going off. Like, can I just, okay, you mentioned this, and this is what I can connect you to. I'm walking away. So remember, I'm not doing this with everyone because I'm intentional with my time, right? Value alignment, someone who's also interested in working together, not just take, take, take. But I usually almost always have already someone to connect them to during that initial
Mhm.
conversation. So it could even be something. So I have articles on Forbes. So sometimes this might be helpful for your audience, right? So I have women or folks who are thinking about making the jump from corporate to entrepreneurship. And I think 2 years after I made that jump, I published an article on Forbes and I documented my process because I haven't seen that done before, right? To the level of
Right.
detail. I have risk mitigation, finances, and stuff. So I said, here's an article that I wrote that might be helpful. So that might be my follow up, right? Or it could be, oh, you're looking for a life coach. I know someone who can help you with this transition. So I'm collecting data points. So that could be the follow up. The other thing I do is I'm a LinkedIn person. And so on LinkedIn, I hope everyone is using it. If not, I definitely encourage downloading the app. So hopefully you can see. So this is my LinkedIn. So if you start just clicking where it says search, you just click, you don't do anything else. Let's see.
Yeah.
So
And most people will be listening, but
yeah.
we'll
So
link to her LinkedIn in the show notes.
yeah, so if you go to search and then you'll start to see a barcode right here, a QR code. If you click that, it'll show your barcode so you don't have to deal with,
Yes.
spelling of names and stuff like that. So to me, I
They
connect
could
with
just
people
scan
there.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just scan each other's barcode and boom, you're
Yes.
connected.
And then I sent them, hey, great meeting you at X, Y, and Z, because it's a
Yes.
reminder to me of where I met them, the same thing for them. And now we're connected. It's not just a stack of cards that stays on my desk. Like I can message them and things like that. Then I can drop, hey, if I'm interested in furthering the conversation, here's access to my calendar, and here are some places we can meet. And then from that one on one, right, there's action items for both of us. Like, this is how I
Right.
can help you. And, hopefully they'll also ask, what can I do for you? And if you're really jamming, like you're really vibing with this person, I recommend like a quarterly meetup. Just
Mhm.
make the next appointment before you leave this one to keep the connection going.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. I actually did that with a woman at a podcasting event last year. And same thing, vibing. And we have a quarterly check in, and it's just fun. I'm like, we've actually gotten to know each other so much better than if we just had one coffee chat and never talk again, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just add one more thing, Karen. So I think most of us, again, the limitations we have around networking is, unless I have a referral for you or a job for you, there's nothing we can talk about. There are so many other strategic ways to support each other, right? So if there's like an event or a conference that I think the person could benefit from, if there's an article I come across, I serve on a lot of boards locally. So if there's sponsorship opportunity for business owners, or there's just a ton of other ways. So I'm going to challenge all of us to kind of expand our idea around networking and how we can support each other. I think those are ways that we can, also keep the connection going.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about being ghosted because this has happened to me multiple times. And I don't know if it's because I give off this vibe that like I'm going to try to sell you life coaching or something, but
Mm,
I'm like genuinely trying to help someone. So there was a woman I met, I'm not going to say where, but at a networking event. And she'd just been laid off. She didn't know what she wanted to do next. And I was actually not trying to sell her anything, but I was like, we should just have a coffee chat because I can tell you all about that. I've been laid off myself. Like, I get it. You're right where you need to be. This is going to be exciting for you. And then it was like, yes, we should totally follow up. We connected on LinkedIn. And then it was like crickets. And I'm like,
mm,
hey, here's my link. Would love to hop on a call with you. Crickets. Like,
mm,
oh, hey. And I feel like I kept trying to reach out to her. Finally, I'm like, okay, now I think I'm just annoying her. But
mm,
what did I do? And it's not just once, it's happened a couple of times. And so I started changing, like when I would go to these virtual events and I wouldn't even put my title, like life coach anymore,
mm,
because
mm.
I just didn't know if that was like freaking people out and they thought I was going to tell them something. So I don't know if you have ever been ghosted or if you have any tips of how to handle that or just like suck it up and roll on. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, you said a lot of interesting things there. So just with the limited information that you've given and then knowing you as a person, which a lot of people don't have the benefit of, right? Like you're a go-getter, like you're there and that energy can perhaps intimidate some people, right? Like, whoa,
Yes.
right? Like you're there and you just want to get it done, right? So it could be that. It could also be yeah, people are thinking, okay, I've just lost my job and this is a life coach. Maybe she's trying to sell me services. That is very much within the realm of possibilities. And so I think in order to be clear on that value, and these people could very well be your clients, but you're just trying to right now, this person needs help and you have a certain
Yeah.
skill set, you're just trying to be helpful. So I think maybe using like complimentary. So I use complimentary a lot, like, hey, complimentary consultation. I don't want anything from this. I just think you are in a space where you need a little bit of help and I'm in a position to give it. I'm willing to give you 15, 20 minutes of my time and that's all. And I want to give you some resources and be true to that, right?
Right.
And so I think, something like that, changing our language so that, how do we separate business development from, really just truly being helpful, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes it's just the language. And other times, Karen, I'm going to tell you, not everyone is worthy of our time.
Yes. Amen. Preach.
They're just not. And so I think when you start to become super intentional about the value that you have to offer and you're reaching out, like I always say to my clients, like during my consultations, I cannot be more excited about your goals than you are. That is a problem because then it's going to feel like pushing. It's going to feel like annoying. It's going to feel like selling, right? If we're not aligned on the goal, it's a problem. But just super clear and say, yes, I offer services, but what I'm offering you right now is my time to see if I can help you troubleshoot. It's complimentary, no, nothing to lose, no obligations. Then boom, if they take it, they take it. If not, you've done your part. Be okay
Yes.
with doing your part. There's no ifs and buts about what you could have done. Make those tweaks and see if that makes a difference.
I love that. Good advice. I knew you'd have an answer for me. You'd knew what to do. Okay, so mistakes. Let's talk about mistakes because I think we've already mentioned a few, like going in and thinking you got to have this like power pitch and you got to drop as many business cards and talk to as many people as possible. But what are some of the mistakes you see women making in the whole ecosystem of networking? I would love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, some of it we've touched. It's kind of like being intimidated by the whole concept of networking because usually that has to do with misconceptions about networking that you have to be this big personality energy and rock the room and be the party of, the room. And then, what do I have to offer? Kind of making ourselves small. So hopefully now that we talked about networking is really just literally like strengthening the human fiber. That is all. Someone is always, always looking for good quality service talent. I mean, we do it every day. Do you know a great this? Do you know a great that? So now the idea is to let them know that, yep, I know my stuff. I'm dope. I'm competent. I know what I'm doing and I'm here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not all I am. That's just one of the hats that I wear. And I'm capable in many other ways. And I could just be a decent human being to get to know. Right. I honestly, in the most humble way possible, say like it is an honor to get to work with me. And I hope people take that like in the way that I'm intending it to, because the way I pour into myself and my relationships and my business is that serious. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to chase, I'm going to let you know this is the value, and hopefully we align and we make magic happen. So I think it's rephrasing our perspective about what that means, and then being clear about the value that we bring. It doesn't matter. I know that a lot of people, when they're laid off, like, I mean, they're understandably, their confidence and their self-worth goes, and that's really honestly the time to develop that true value after stripping ourselves of titles, right? Corporate titles,
Yes.
money. That's truly, and doing that work during that time when we're down is really going to help us when we are back up again. We're not going to be blinded with the shiny things and all of that. So that's really important work. So rephrasing, our perspective on that. And then being selective. You don't have to, it can be exhausting, especially for introverts, honestly, Karen, like
Sure.
to go and it's just a lot. So being really strategic and intentional about which spaces to occupy, why you're occupying them, what you have to offer. And then to your point, the follow up. So a lot of us do go and make great connections, but the follow up feels like work. And I think a lot of it is because, again, what do I have to offer, right? So just saying that it was great connecting and, pulling the data points from our conversation, saying, I remember you said this or that, and, here's an article or here's something, that I think you would like, would you be interested in a coffee or whatever? And again, being intentional about making it easy to say yes. Don't just say you want to meet
Mhm.
up, like here's a place, here's a
Right.
time, here's a date, then boom, right?
Yeah.
And then nurturing and expanding this idea of networking beyond referrals to just creating a village. Look at it that way, creating a village and being resourceful.
Yeah, and I will just also add, I think one of the mistakes that think some people make is they're like throwing out all this stuff like, "Oh, I'll help you with this, I'll connect you with that," and then they don't. And that for me is like the kiss of death. Do not tell me you're going to do something if you are not really truly intending on doing it. And I have had so many people do that, and I'm leaving thinking this was great. They're going to connect me with so and so, and this introduction is going to happen, and then it's like they're gone. They fall off the face of the earth, and I think that hurts your credibility a lot. So, ladies, if you say you're going to do something, either write it down on the back of the card, put a note right in your phone, whatever you need to do. Even you could, if you want, put the onus on them. Hey, if you send me an email with
I was
this,
just
this,
gonna
and
say,
this,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you know if they're serious, if they really want it or not.
Yeah, and so that's what I was gonna say. Some of us are really intentional about like, I gotta walk the talk. If I make a commitment to someone, it's just in my personality to make sure I deliver it, right?
Yeah.
It's just a value system that I have. But I think a lot of people do have the intention of doing what they want to do, but life gets in the way. And so I love what I was just gonna propose. Usually when people say, "Hey, can you do?" Yep, I got you. Can you send me an email? Because the way I manage my time, I mean, I'm getting texts and DMs, all sorts of communication is. I'm going to organize my email in a certain way, right? And I have certain days and I have themed days for, about my Feel Good Fridays, right? I think.
Yes.
And so, like, that's my way I organize. So that's perfectly okay to put the onus back and say, love to help you. Can you just shoot me an email just so I don't forget? And I think that's fair.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on today that you're like, I got to tell your audience this? They need to know this.
Let's see. I think we covered a lot, honestly. I'm just
Yeah.
going to say, be intentional. You got this. Networking should not be intimidating. There is a methodology, there is a way to break it down, and there's not just one way to do it. Like, networking does not have to equal going to a bar, loud drinks, music, passing out cards. That does not have to be the only form of networking. That may work for some, does not work for me. And so just being intentional about where you are in your life, what you need, what type of connections, what type of resources, and also being clear about the value that you bring. Trust me when I tell you, there are so many things at your disposal that you naturally are great at, and separate that from the title you wear, the hat you wear, right? And like I said, by profession, I'm a real estate broker. A lot of my DMs, I'm like, oh, you seem to know everything. You seem to know everyone. Has nothing to do with real estate. It's like, do you know who I can contact for this person? Or do you have any resources for this? And almost always I do, because I spend
Yep.
time in creating those resources, right? So, separate yourself from those and know that you are valuable. Just as you are valuable, regardless of a job, regardless of a title. There's a lot of value you can bring. Be clear on that. Be clear on what those things are. And then be intentional. Start small. Once a month is okay, especially for moms, right? With young children, we have to care about childcare and stuff like that. And then, implement the systems that we talked about and see results. And then, you can kind of mold it and shape it the way that, that works for you. But yeah, hopefully the conversation we had today I really enjoyed it. It was organic. And
Good.
I
Yeah.
hope that, people have something that they can take away and feel like they can make their own and run with it.
Yeah, and I really want to challenge everyone to make a strategy for 2025.
Yeah.
Really consider your goals. What are the things that you want to accomplish next year? And how are you going to use networking to make that happen? What rooms do you need to be in? Who do you need to be with? And I got to tell you, same thing as a mom, I don't want to be out during the evening.
Yeah.
I love virtual networking events. And there are so many organizations that you can be part of
Yeah.
that have daytime networking. And for me, that just works. And every
Yeah.
once in a while, I might jump out, but I'm not doing a lot of that kind of networking right now just because of the season of life that I'm in. So,
Yeah. Can I just add one more thing?
Please.
You reminded me. So I am now more daytime, but because I work for myself, because we work for ourselves, I think we have to be mindful that, people who work for someone else may not have that luxury. What I will tell you, when you and I were in corporate, the mistake that people made was, I would say, remember Elevate? Like, I would say, hey, Elevate is having they're like, I'm working on this deck. And I'm like, okay, I understand there's job responsibilities, but I think the mistake that people make is they don't start networking until they need the networking.
Yes.
That is the number one mistake that I see, is like, well, you have to have built these relationships in order to cash on them, right? So even when you have a great job, even when you have, maybe it's not great, but it's demanding and stressful, you have to make time to broaden your network and to get to know people, so that when there's opportunities, people have already met you. So you don't look up once you're laid off or, whatever, and start to network. You're not in the mental space to do that, right?
Yep.
You're already feeling defeated. And you may feel like you're coming from a desperate, space, as opposed to you already having something secure and actively doing that. So it's the same thing in business, right? We have current business, but we always have to be prospecting for more. So as you were talking, that's what came to mind. And I think that's an important one to mention.
Yeah, that was big for me when I was in tech before I made the move to energy. After they kind of slighted me, I had a big chief of staff role, and the big promise was, oh, you'll be made director. And then suddenly, that wasn't available for me. And I was like, I want out. But it took me almost 6-7 months before I was able to start getting the interviews and getting the connections, because I had to go build a network outside of the current company that I was in. And that takes some time. So yeah, right on. I have lived that mistake, and it will never happen again. Because once you live it, you're like, oh, shoot, this really is important. And so you never know when that layoff slip is coming. You never know when that reorg is going to happen. You never know when that big promise that they made you falls through, and you're like, I got to make a move. Better have that network in place.
Yeah. And usually when you already have something, you're in a place to give, because you're not looking to take, right? So you want to pour and build and give when you can, so that if you ever need it, you've deposited enough, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a bank, right? Like you've got the money in there to take it back out. You've got that credit for sure. So much wisdom. Thank you so much for being here today. I have one final signature question, and that is for the woman listening right now who knows she wants to make a change in her life, but she doesn't know how to get started. What would you say to her?
You got this. You can do this. You got this. I know it's easy to say. I was a risk-averse introvert, and I was the last person who thought would resign from corporate, and I did it. And what I will tell you is, if your values are getting violated, lean into that. Lean into that frustration. That is where you're going to find your courage to make the next step. And so just make one small action. Maybe the action is to go to the next networking event that you get invited to, and be intentional about it and what you're looking for, what you have to offer, and then build on that. But you got it.
Totally. You do. We've all got this. And sometimes we just need that reminder. So start betting on yourself, ladies. Tez, thank you for being here today. Thank you for all of your wisdom. And if y'all have not connected with Tez, where's a great place for people to go and learn about you and connect with you? Because they need to be in your network.
Thank you so much. So LinkedIn is probably the best place. I'm active there. Not only is my profile there, but you get to get to know me a little bit better. I post a lot about where I've been, what I speak on, and things like that. This is one of the few signature workshops and speaking engagements that I do. So if your organization needs it, feel free to reach out. But LinkedIn, my website is www.tezroro.com. You can also reach me there. Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best.
I'll put those in the show notes. We'll have them both for people to click on. So awesome. Get connected with Tez. Make your networking plan for 2025. And until next time, ladies, stay fabulous.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. If you want more accountability and support, I've got your back. Book a complimentary Empowered Exit Strategy call today. Visit KarenFreeland.com to learn more and book your 45-minute session. Until next time, stay fabulous.